The heading says in this section, simplicity is key. The idea here is to keep it very simple so kids can't get lost, to make things very clean and clear cut. That way you remove all barriers, or really, realistically, if we're talking about secondary students, excuses for why students can't do their work. My philosophy was always, if I have removed all the barriers that I can as an educator to learning, it is the student's responsibility to make that stuff work, right? Get those barriers out of the way and then make them do the work, keep those tasks rigorous. And so one of the ways that we can do that in online learning is taking out all of these things that just don't need to be there. So I have the background of the course you're going through right now pulled up because I want to show you something. So first of all, if I look at this, you can see some of these are green. We're going to get into this in the later module. Some of these are greens because I published it. That way I can do this. I can click on student view here. And you can see this is what you are seeing. I mean, you can see the other stuff in there, but this is what mostly you're seeing. Notice right over here on the left-hand side, if I leave student view here, I've got all of these other things here that pop up. But when I go to student view, you can't see any of them. You have two options. And those are the only two places I want you to go in my course. That way you can't accidentally end up somewhere and I've got a student coming to me saying, Mr. Trauman, I can't find the assignment for this unit. And it's because they've clicked on something that they honestly just did not need to be. I've given you one direct path to get to all of your stuff. So let's talk about how to do that. Over in your Sandbox course, so I'm going to pull up my Sandbox course that I made in the previous video. You're probably noticing a difference here. All of these little eyeballs were present when we were looking at the other course, and some of these things are marked and some of them aren't. It's relatively self-explanatory, right? Like if it's got a little eyeball and a line through it, that means you can't see it. And here is how you make that possible. If I come down here to settings, and then this is where we were before in the previous video, and instead I'm going to go over here to this top menu and click on navigation. So all of these things up here are things that students can see and have access to and potentially click on. What I'm going to do is everything I don't want students to have, I'm going to click and drag. And I'm just going to do this with literally everything except for modules. This, if you are a first-time Canvas user, is one of the best ways to go right here. That way kids can only see these modules because you're going to create those modules, you're going to give those modules to kids, and then they can't end up anywhere else. And then slowly add some things in. It's much better to have a pretty lean, pretty clean Canvas course in here for students, and then slowly add some of those things in as students get a little bit more fluid with it, and you can scaffold that experience for them. I had to pause the video because I forgot what else I was going to talk about. So once you have messed with everything that you want in your navigation, again, you'll notice I have to go back and do this because I clicked off of that page and I didn't do something very, very important, which is something that if you're not a Google user, which Cascade is not, then you are probably very used to like saving things, right? Because things automatically save in some programs and not others. I'm going to hit save down here at the bottom, and now notice it's going to update all of these different pieces here. Module still has this eyeball next to it because I don't have anything published for my students. So that will go away once we get to publishing. You'll see that. The other thing I want you to take a little bit of a closer look on here is as soon as I hit save, notice it dumped me over here into course details, which is good because that's exactly where we want to be. I want you to just take a look through here and take a look at a few things for me. So you can change your name and course code. I'm going to leave them there. That's totally fine with me. I'm going to create a start date on here. I have to change it to a course. And this is going to be available to the Cascade School District on Monday. And I'm going to make it so that you can no longer access it on the 31st. That way it is all the way through the month of August. And notice I get this other little notification down here that's set to midnight on the last day, but I can change that here if I wanted to. I'm going to leave it at midnight. If you really want to dig into that midnight on the 31st, that is before 11:59, that is your prerogative. Some of these other things we can play around with, and we'll come back to them. Actually, honestly, these are covered in level 2. But you're going to want to make sure that you choose this correctly. So individual learning paths is something that you might want to have the option for. It allows you to differentiate lessons for your students. You could leave that clicked on. We're not going to cover that in this course. And then this one is totally up to you. Allows the stuff on there to be downloaded and then taken offline. If some of your students live in a remote area and they have internet connectivity issues at home, this is a really good thing to have because they could download the stuff at school. It'd be on their computer and they can view it offline at home. That can be just one way to provide that access for your students. So go ahead and take a look at those settings through here. Let me know if you have any questions about these, what these different things do. But go ahead and customize this to your liking. And then when you're done, move on to lesson 1.4.